Hi there, welcome. This is Book of Mormon Reader. I am so glad that you joined me today for Ether chapter 14. This is an interesting chapter, and there's some questions to ponder, perhaps as we listen to it, which one of them I think is, what would it take? What's the progression of wickedness to get to this point where you're just so full of rage and anger that you live like this? So let's get started, shall we? Book of Ether, chapter 14 in the Book of Mormon. And now there began to be a great curse upon all the land because of the iniquity of the people, in which, if a man should lay his tool or his sword upon his shelf, or upon the place whither he would keep it, behold, upon the morrow he could not find it, so great was the curse upon the land. Wherefore every man did cleave unto that which was his own with his hands, and would not borrow, neither would he lend, and every man kept the hilt of his sword in his right hand, in the defense of his property, and his own life, and of his wives and children. And now, after the space of 2 years, and after the death of Shared, behold, there arose the brother of Shared, and he gave battle unto Coriantumr, in which Coriantumr did beat him, and did pursue him to the wilderness of Achish. And it came to pass that the brother of Shared did give battle unto him in the wilderness of Achish, and the battle became exceedingly sore, and many thousands fell by the sword. And it came to pass that Coriantumr did lay siege to the wilderness, and the brother of Shared did march forth out of the wilderness by night, and slew a part of the army of Coriantumr as they were drunken. And he came forth to the land of Moron, and placed himself upon the throne of Coriantumr. And it came to pass that Coriantumr dwelt with his army in the wilderness for the space of 2 years, in which he did receive great strength to his army. Now the brother of Shared, whose name was Gilead, also received great strength to his army, because of secret combinations. And it came to pass that his high priest murdered him, as he sat upon his throne. And it came to pass that one of the secret combinations murdered him in a secret pass, and obtained unto himself the kingdom, and his name was Lib. And Lib was a man of great stature, more than any other man among all the people. And it came to pass that in the 1st year of Lib, Coriantumr came up unto the land of Moron, and gave battle unto Lib. And it came to pass that he fought with Lib, in which Lib did smite upon his arm, that he was wounded. Nevertheless the army of Coriantumr did press forward upon Lib, that he fled to the borders upon the seashore. And it came to pass that Coriantumr pursued him, and Lib gave battle unto him upon the seashore. And it came to pass that Lib did smite the army of Coriantumr, that they fled again to the wilderness of Achish. And it came to pass that Lib did pursue him until he came to the plains of Agosh. And Coriantumr had taken all the people with him, as he fled before Lib in that quarter of the land whither he fled. And when he had come to the plains of Agosh, he gave battle unto Lib, and he smote upon him until he died. Nevertheless the brother of Lib did come against Coriantumr in the stead thereof, and the battle became exceedingly sore, in the which Coriantumr fled again before the army of the brother of Lib. Now the name of the brother of Lib was called Shiz. And it came to pass that Shiz pursued after Coriantumr, and he did overthrow many cities, and he did slay both women and children, and he did burn the cities. And there went a fear of Shiz throughout all the land, yea, a cry went forth throughout the land, Who can stand before the army of Shiz? Behold, he sweepeth the earth before him. And it came to pass that the people began to flock together in armies throughout all the face of the land. And they were divided, and a part of them fled to the army of Shiz, and a part of them fled to the army of Coriantumr. And so great and lasting had been the war, and so long had been the scene of bloodshed and carnage, that the whole face of the land was covered with the bodies of the dead. And so swift and speedy was the war, that there was none left to bury the dead, but they did march forth from the shedding of blood to the shedding of blood, leaving the bodies of both men, women, and children strewed upon the face of the land, to become a prey to the worms of the flesh. And the scent thereof went forth upon the face of the land, even upon all the face of the land, wherefore the people became troubled by day and by night, because of the scent thereof. Nevertheless, Shiz did not cease to pursue Coriantumr, for he had sworn to avenge himself upon Coriantumr of the blood of his brother, who had been slain, and the word of the Lord which came to Ether, that Coriantumr should not fall by the sword. And thus we see that the Lord did visit them in the fullness of his wrath, and their wickedness and abominations had prepared a way for their everlasting destruction. And it came to pass that Shiz did pursue Coriantumr eastward, even to the borders by the seashore, and there he gave battle unto Shiz for the space of 3 days. And so terrible was the destruction among the armies of Shiz, that the people began to be frightened, and began to flee before the armies of Coriantumr, and they fled to the land of Korihor, and swept off the inhabitants before them, all them that would not join them. And they pitched their tents in the valley of Korihor, and Coriantumr pitched his tents in the valley of Shur. Now the valley of Shur was near the hill Comnor, wherefore Coriantumr did gather his armies together upon the hill Comnor, and did sound a trumpet unto the armies of Shiz, to invite them forth to battle. And it came to pass that they came forth, but were driven again. And they came the second time, and they were driven again the second time. And it came to pass that they came again the third time, and the battle became exceedingly sore. And it came to pass that Shiz smote upon Coriantumr, that he gave him many deep wounds. And Coriantumr, having lost his blood, fainted, and was carried away as though he were dead. Now the loss of men, women, and children on both sides was so great that Shiz commanded his people that they should not pursue the armies of Coriantumr, wherefore they returned to their camp. Wow, I'm looking at this knowing, because we read yesterday what's coming for these people in the future, and it's kind of an interesting experience working backwards in the Book of Mormon, because I've done it so many times forward. I thought, I'll mix it up a little bit and do it backwards. And some things it doesn't really matter which order you do it if you look at each piece like a puzzle piece, and then eventually it all comes together. But let's just start from the beginning here. If you're reading along with me, let's go back to verse 1. And it says that there was a curse, a great curse upon the land. What brought about the curse? The iniquity of the people, their wickedness. And it's kind of an interesting curse that they say, if a man should lay his tool or his sword upon his shelf, or upon the place whither he would keep it, behold, on the morrow he couldn't find it. So he'd put something down, and then he wouldn't be able to find it. And this reminded me when I was reading it the first time, my dad and his tools. When we were kids, he was always screaming, where's my hammer? Where's my screwdriver? Where's my whatever? And my mom used to say, where's my? And how frustrating that is when, something that you need is not there. Can you imagine how annoying that would be if you went to find something, and it wasn't there? how frustrating would that be? That is a curse. That's a horrible thing, that you can't trust that people leave your things alone. And it's kind of an interesting thought here, but I had another thought in my mind because of the threat of communism and socialism that has been brought to this free nation America, from where I'm recording. And when everything belongs to everybody else, there's no private property. And if there's no private property, because everything belongs to the state or belongs to, not you, that you're just using it for that moment, how can you not steal from somebody else? If it's not stealing to take something that, so it means possession, that you can have things that belong to you, which means that in the commandments, when it says thou shalt not steal, that means that God believes in private property and personal ownership. He believes in those things. And so we inherently know that when we have our things, even look at little teeny tiny children. What's one of the first words they learn? Mine. I think of those little birds from Finding Nemo. Mine, 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 mine. Well, little babies do that too. Mine, mine. We need to have personal ownership so that we can be stewards of things, so that we can take care of them, that we can be accountable to them, whatever it is that are our things. And this is a curse if your things are not respected and honored. I'm sure it would make you just crazy. I'm in an interesting chapter of my life where I just got married recently, and my kids are they're grown. They don't live at home with me or with us, and so there's just my husband and I, and we live here. And if there's something that's not where you thought you put it, either you're cracking up yourself or it's the other person. You're like, wait a second, where did I put that? There's no one to blame. And before I got married, I lived alone for several years after I got divorced, and there was nobody else to blame except for me if I misplaced something. And you're like, dang, I must be going crazy. So this is an interesting curse, that it doesn't say that, it was bringing forth, thorns and thistles, but that was the curse, that their things weren't where they put them. And so because the things weren't where they put them enough, it says in the verse 2, they did cleave unto that, which means they just held on to it with their hands. And it's like, you want to borrow this? Sorry. Can I borrow that? Nope. Sorry. You don't borrow and you don't lend. That's an interesting thing. Because when you have trust in a society, in a family, you're free. Oh yeah, borrow this book. It's great. Just, make sure that you return it when you're done. And they didn't do that. And so they were so crazy with people not returning things that they wouldn't lend things either. There was no goodwill towards their mankind. And that's a horrible place to be in. And so you kind of see that there's this progression, because borrowing and lending, it connotes and implies respect. Respect for the thing that you're borrowing, and respect for the person from whom you're borrowing. And then when you're the person who borrows and you take care of something and then you return it, that also means respect. So not only do we see what's coming for them, but just simple things like that. I remember one time this girl borrowed a dress of mine, and was she pregnant? Is that why she borrowed it? I think if she was pregnant. And so obviously this was a long, long time ago. And when I'm finished with clothing, there's certain things I really love that they're nice. And sometimes, I love to shop at thrift stores. But if I get something that's really nice, I'll keep it, because I might want to wear it again if it's, something, or I want to gift it to somebody specific that I may not know at that moment. But believe me, there have been enough times when I go, I've been saving these things and I know just who I want to give them to. But most of the time I have a little, a packet or a bag ready to go that I'm ready to donate when I go, I haven't worn this in a while. And I donate nice things. I don't donate junk. I will never ever forget when I visited the humanitarian section of Deseret Industries in Salt Lake City, Utah. What an impressive operation that was, and how I went into this enormous warehouse, piles high, with pallets of clothing. And down on the floor, there, I don't know how many there were, but there were sorters going through clothing. And if it was had a tear or a rip, they would just discard it. And they said, think about if you're poor, you don't want to wear, clothes with holes in them and stains on them. If you won't wear them, what makes you think they'll wear them? And then, we want to treat these people we give our clothing to with dignity and with respect. So it changed me and how I donated things. If it was unusable to me, then I would, if you can salvage something from it, or just simply throw it away. If there's some great buttons on it, keep the buttons. You can always make jewelry out of buttons, or a craft project, or, whatever. But anyway, what I'm saying is that I give nice things when I give it away, if I'm finished wearing it. If it doesn't fit anymore, or like it's not the right color, and whatever it is. But it is, what am I saying? I'm totally rambling. Let me get back to what I was thinking about. When you, this girl who borrowed my dress, okay, it was something that I specifically asked for. Yeah, I'd like that back. And she took it and she wore it. And when I asked her for it back, I guess she had her baby or whatever, she returned it, and she cut off like 6 inches off the bottom of this dress and returned it back to me. I couldn't believe it. Still, look how many years has gone by, and I'm like, I can't believe it. She just, like, it was too long for me. Well, anyway, so I thought, wow, this is so unbelievable that, number one, a person could have the gall to mistreat somebody else's property like that, and two, that she would return it with no apology, with no willingness to make amends or whatever. It was unbelievable. So this is about respect. This whole thing is about respect. Now, in a civil world, that's what happens. So these people that are, in these enormous battles, this is long past respect. Long past. And forget borrowing and lending things. They have a sword in their hand to defend their property and their life and their wives' lives and their children's lives. How crazy is that? That you can't even get a good night's sleep. You can't get a good night's sleep. That is a curse. That's a horrible curse. And then, of course, it brings it to now the battle. And I'm just scrolling down here reading this. One interesting thing I wanted to kind of point out that I noticed, the high priest murdered him as he sat upon his throne, brother of Sherod. This was a person he trusted, obviously, and it talks about secret combinations, and you watch these people who are in high places, and they're the number 2 or the number 3, and there's such corruption. It's difficult for me to read these scriptures and not apply it to what I see in my own government these days, and watching that you cannot trust somebody who is corrupt. They don't have, the best interests of the country. They don't have the best interest of their leader, and certainly they're, I would say, under the influence of Satan. That's where these things come from. And what is Satan's intent? Selfishness. Complete selfishness at the expense of everything else. And this is, he was murdered by his own high priest. So that lets you know right away. He was a priest. It was a religious appointment. And obviously he wasn't worthy because he was committing murder, which is not just a horrible thing to do against the commandments, but my goodness, he took his life. And no value to human life. This is the most horrendous thing, but when there's just no value to human life. This morning on the news, there's a breaking photograph. Anderson Cooper, who is a correspondent with CNN, I believe, he's in the streets of, where is he? Does it say in this news picture? And he said that they dragged this guy they tied him up with his feet and dragged him on like a motorcycle through the town and said that he was a spy for Israel and just dragged him around. And another one today's headlines, that there were 6 people, they threw them out in the street, they killed them, and they left them there, piles of bodies. This is today in 2012. So here I am, I'm reading these scriptures from, hundreds of years ago, and looking, wow, this is happening in my day. This is not something that is not applicable to my day. I see this right now. And the horrible part about this one, which, I just want to quickly touch upon it. My husband is a funeral guy, and he prepares families to send off their loved one who's passed on. And he has shown me this film that they were required to watch. It's called what is it called? Departures. And it's about this guy who accidentally gets a job as he prepares bodies for casketing in I think it's Japan. And he at first, I don't want to go into the whole plot of that, but the point of it is he does it with such an art and such a respect. And it's a ceremony that the family actually watches while he dresses them and cosmetizes this person. And they watch. And it's this beautiful ceremony. They don't do that in America, but they do. They do embalming and they do the cosmetizing. They have a viewing. Some religions have a wake, a couple nights before, and they do it with honor and allow time to grieve. Well, here in this, there's so many dead people. It says that there's nobody left to bury them. Look in verse 22. So swift and so speedy was the war. There was nobody left to bury them. And they just went around, just killing people from one place to another, and until the land was heaped with their bodies. How disgusting is that? The thought of it, the sight of it must have just been absolutely like, is this my life? How could this be happening? I went to the movies this weekend, and before our movie started, we popped into one of the theaters and saw just one little scene from there's a movie out called Lincoln. And one of the guys, I obviously I just popped in for a second, but he went into a hospital. President Lincoln went to go visit these soldiers in the hospital, and they were all losing their limbs. And this guy who didn't go in with them, standing outside, followed this wheelbarrow that seemed to be leaking blood until where were they going to dump this wheelbarrow? It was covered with a canvas thing or a tarp, and he followed them until they dumped this wheelbarrow into this big pile of limbs, arms and legs, and it was absolutely horrifying. It was disgusting about the price of war. And these were people who were still living who were doing this. And oh my gosh, to actually see it is so, it's just, I mean, it's horrifying what war does. It's absolutely horrifying. Well, then this, for some reason, this writer goes on to say even more description. You know, when you're writing or when you're reading, when you can involve the senses, can you imagine what that does to the person who's writing it? And they're like, oh, let me try to capture what this was like so that whoever reads this can experience what I experienced. And they talk about the scent. They said they became troubled by day and by night because of the scent thereof. How horrifying. I mean, just imagining how horrible that scent must have been. I mean, if you've ever even just had a rodent die in your walls or something, you're like, oh, what is that smell? Oh, it's disgusting. I mean, truly, it's disgusting. And the smell of, ugh, I don't even want to get into that. But that is a horrible thing. And to see that, when does some kind of outrage come that you say, how did we become this? How did we become this? This is just absolutely horrifying that, that we've come to this point. And yet they went on. We know that they went on. They continued until it was the last people. They just went on and on. And this is a horrifying prospect to think that this kind of depravity of mankind, that they were so far away from love, that they were just so steeped in this hatred. What a horrible place to be. Winding up this is Book of Ether. The chapter. I think it's safe to say that hopefully, if you're to the point where you're actually listening to something like scriptures, you're safe, you're civil, you still have technology that you can access. It's a blessing. And how much we need to keep the commandments, to be a blessing to our lives, to be a blessing to the land. It's kind of interesting, they say it's a curse of the land. I remember hearing that the very earth responds to wickedness. The very earth responds to righteousness. And you think about the Garden of Eden, when things, before Adam and Eve partook of the fruit they were not supposed to, it's spontaneously brought forth fruits and flowers and foliage. But when they partook of the fruit against God's will, or exercising their own free will, I should say, that the earth was transformed.
90 seconds.
Oh my gosh, where did the time go? That the earth actually was transformed. That the earth actually responds to sin or righteousness. Sometimes, we have to stop even though we're not finished, and that's what I'm going to do, because I'm getting my audio reminders that my time is up. So thanks for joining me. I appreciate your support, and have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.